I think one of my main points is that we have had this two-party system for a long time, and if you were this international consortium who, one second, throw the giraffe moment. If you were this little international, not little, very powerful international consortium who had managed to float the dollar over country and, systematically buy up the assets and, own the banks, so therefore have the power to create their debt asset, which is of immense value to finance the public budget and could actually, in effect, eventually eliminate the need for income tax. So you're talking extreme left and extreme right with my policies, but if you manage to then get them to introduce the TTP, which corporatised the country effectively, and in addition to the Paris Agreement, which effectively hands over a huge portion of tax control in the future to the United Nations, so that we have a global government allocating or demanding our tax expenditure based on carbon, the gas that's the industrial portion of CO2, which is only 33 out of every 86,800 molecules in the atmosphere, is only one of the 33. So one air molecule is industrial CO2 out of every 86,800 in the atmosphere, and that's what we are being reorganised. Our entire economy is being reorganised to be taxed on, which is National, Labour, TOP, and the Greens all planning that, which is so illogical. Whilst all of them, well, not all of them, but definitely they all allow the industrial extraction to continue until, somewhere between 2030 and 2050, when in fact, within one electoral period, within 1 3-year period, maximum 6-year period, we could completely transition our energy systems. We could be completely energy self-sufficient. New Zealand has that capability already, but we could transition to completely clean energy self-sufficiency. We're even leading the world in technologies like artificial photosynthesis that, are 1,000 steps better than photovoltaic panels, which still require silicon mining, which are highly toxic to any area or nation or group of people who are actually mining those for us. So they're not clean energy photovoltaic panels, but we do have solar technologies that are. We have a lot of waste to value technologies that are, and we can combine those solar, water and plant technologies, which are cutting edge but small scale, into a market structure that allows us to completely transition to local, decentralised, self-sufficient supply of clean energy. And we can do that within 3 years, but definitely 6. And so why do we not have politicians talking about a vision like that? Why are they all saying we'll do it by 2050? Well, that's because they're all funded by still a group of different consortiums of old men who want to control the economy for their financial benefit. So that transition needs to be slow and calm and restricted so that they can monopolise the value of it. That's why. It's just so obvious. And within this two-party system, why are these parties not held accountable for their election promises? Why is there no law that requires, once they get into power, that they absolutely stick to their campaign promises and implement and execute exactly as promised? I mean, Labour's just surpassing that now. Jacinda's out there playing, auditions for the role of Queen, where she's just saying, give me the throne, I'll sit on it, I'll listen to you, my subjects and servants, and then I'll make a decision. With no experience in running anything in the world ever, or creating anything, or anything remotely demonstrating mass intellectual capability that is required to run a country, but let me be your adjudicator. Queen, give me a crown, let me sit on your throne, and don't worry about the policies, just trust me because I look innocent. It's absolutely absurd. We must vote on clear policies, and then those people who promise those policy changes must implement them. I mean, other things are illogical. National announced a budget $1 billion short on what the unions want for the healthcare, right? So that the nurses are well paid and adequately staffed, and that we have access to the 200 drugs we can't otherwise afford, and that, we don't have children, as my friend has got his little 1-year-old developing diabetes, and they have to torture her every hour for the rest of her life, to prick her for her blood, to test the insulin levels, because we can't afford to give her or them the proper testing equipment, because our health budget is inadequate. Now, so we're $1 billion short on National's budget, and then suddenly, who's found the money to build a new hospital in Dunedin? well, that's great. Obviously, they've looked at the electoral map and realised they need to absolutely win Dunedin, and, you know, shelling out a hospital will win them that vote. But how is that even possible without first allocating the extra probably $3 billion that we need in the healthcare budget? I mean, we are dealing with a new frontier of illogical politics, where as long as you look popular, as long as you've played humble pie and said you're insecure and you never want to be Prime Minister unless your cabinet drops dead, I mean, and then suddenly you are put in the top dog role, but it just seems like it was always planned. And I don't know, I just really feel like we have to have an appetite for change. We need to get out of this two-party system. They are two heads on the same beast. Nothing ever really changes the fundamental monetary and economic policies that underlie everything, and the mass contamination that both of those parties are responsible for. I mean, why come out now and say we want to clean up the rivers as Labour when, you know, a huge portion of the pollution in the last 20 years was under their lead? So, you know, they are equally responsible for creating that problem in the rivers with National for short-term profit, meaning short-term vision. In fact, no vision. Why are we not seeing political leaders with vision? Once I decided I wanted to get into politics when I got back to New Zealand, I kind of went to all my cool friends and said, oh my God, you should run for Parliament, run as an MP. And they went, oh my gosh, you're kidding, no thank you. Why are the cool, amazing, successful people not willing to be MPs? I don't know. Maybe they don't have any power for genuine change. Maybe they're kind of, just disinterested in the system because nothing ever seems to happen that's any different. And it's true, we've just got a whole lot of sort of academics and school teachers and probably midwives, which is fantastic, by the way, and I don't know, Boy Scouts in there running our government, not really doing anything. So who's controlling everything? I've got to say, I think it's a bunch of people overseas, and I think that we are systematically sold out. And unless we vote for the alternatives, the independents, the Greens and New Zealand First, perfect new party. Not sure about the James leadership now, it's the integrity thing. I mean, when you've got an agreement with Labour, although I would never sign such a thing, but, I choked on that. Maybe I would. But when you've got an agreement with Labour and you break it blatantly, that is a real lack of integrity. And so I don't see how you could do that in a company, let alone running a country. So that sort of thing aside, New Zealand First and the Greens could present the perfect balance of policy to give this country a real change, and we could actually have a political outcome where for the next 3 to 6 years we could create the world's first completely, holistically sustainable economy where every single person matters first and all of the environment, quality, protection of its health matters second, and finally we are totally global but completely protect our ownership. It's just so important. Okay, so that's my sort of daily rant and ramble. Because I wasn't able to in 3 days get my 500 members signed up with explicit permission to pass on their details to the Electoral Commission to get registered. So unfortunately the Logic Party is not registered for this election, although I have tried to persuade New Zealand First and Winston Peters to put me on as a component party because I think that, well, I know my work in environmental defence for the last 10 years is world-class, world-leading. Speak at the UN on it to environmental lawyers, and I'm working on active cases all around the world to protect our major ecosystems like our rainforest and our coral reefs, and a prevention mechanism for climate change where the industrialists, the polluters, are actually criminally liable for the crime and not the taxpayers, due to pay $14 billion to the UN in the next 10 years for absolutely nothing in return. So there's a better way forward, and you know, I don't know what's going to happen in this election. I watched the dry and boring conversations of vague answers from Bill and Jacinda on the News Talk ZB interview, and I just thought, God, you know, I just feel like it's averageness, and we could have a country that led the world, and it's just such a waste of a brilliant opportunity. So that's my pitch. New Zealand First and the Greens, sort it out, come together, be our third major party, and give New Zealanders someone to vote for genuine, real, world-changing change.